I should see how
You're
to.
live. Hi everyone.
Hi everybody. We are doing this for the first time, so we'll just take the next few minutes to see how this works. Um, okay, I need to find a way to add video, add stream.
Okay.
Hmm. Okay, I'll just open my laptop and look at it. Maybe you can chat with me.
So we'll just wait for a few minutes while we set up things. So we just want to share our screen also. So we'll figure that out. And in the meantime, a few more people might join. So let's just wait for another 5 minutes while we all are ready.
You can ask them to put in their questions.
Yeah. In the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat section. Some of you have already posted your questions in the discussion forum, but if you have anything now, you could just post it. We'll take a look at it. We'll just wait for 5 more minutes. I see someone is asking when it will start. We're already started, but just waiting for 5 more minutes till everyone settles down. Can someone just reply if you can see and hear me? Can someone please comment if they can see and hear me? Okay, cool. Loud and clear. Very nice. Okay, thanks. So we'll just, yeah, as we were saying in the beginning, we're doing this for the first time. We want to share some slides with you through the screencast. So we just want to figure that out. Where's the option for doing that?
Okay. I don't see that.
Let's see. Let's pop out chat. Interesting.
Maybe you can ask people if they know how to do that.
Yeah. So if anyone of you has done this before, and if you know how to share your screen through the live cast, then you can just post it in the comment section.
Just click the share.
Yeah, because we had checked something.
Okay, that's a different share.
Yeah. Embedded. Okay.
So you could do it with Hangouts, in which case you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But with the YouTube live session, I think it's not. So when setting up the feed, there is an option to use Google Hangouts on air.
Okay, then what you can do is we could just share the link with them.
Yeah.
And they can just. Anyways, our presentation is online, so we'll just post the link in the chat section. All of you could just open that and do the presentation.
Okay, so let's do that. Maybe next time we can fix it before.
Yeah, thanks, Ahad. Yeah, we also found out that it's possible on Hangout, but not here. So it's okay. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, so it's about 11:05. We'll get started. We had 5 minutes for the setup. The setup didn't happen exactly, but
yeah.
So welcome everybody to the course. We are very excited to have the first interaction with you. We have got about, I think, more than 1,100 people sign up for the course. So we are very excited about it. So Mitesh, do you want to talk a bit about the initiative, what we are doing and so on?
Yeah, sure. So this is basically to make sure that students from India, right? I mean, they get good exposure to high quality AI courses. So there's a lot of material out there, but it's not clear in what order you should see it, whether the basics have been covered properly. and whether there is enough emphasis on hands-on training, and also whether it really enables you to solve problems that are of relevance to India in general, right? So that's how we are designing this. That's how we are approaching it. And since deep learning is one of the most popular machine learning methods out there right now, we thought we'll start with that and start it in a way that even if you have not done any previous course in this area, you should still be able to understand this and still be able to solve a meaningful problem at the end of it. Right? And the other crucial thing that we are interested in is that have the top performing students come here for a garage so that they get to work even more closely with us and develop some products or apps which can be of societal and commercial value. Right? So that's the whole idea behind this. Yeah, maybe you could add something.
So these two things, right? One is get to the place where you actually are building final products that are useful. That is the place you want to be. And where are you starting? You're starting possibly as someone who has some background in machine learning, but even people who don't have a background in machine learning and are coming in more from a programming background. Let's say you know some amount of Python. I think you can also fit in very well. I think so it's important. There are some questions that people have asked about background. So I just want to clarify that at the very beginning, right? So we are expecting very limited background in terms of, let's say, understanding on the math side, on the programming side. You should understand Python to some extent, but I will be doing a session on Python for about 1.5 hours where we go through the basics of Python. So even that is covered a bit. On the math side, Mitesh will be looking at many of the fundamental concepts as they come. So gradients, derivatives, and so on, right? For someone who already knows a bit of deep learning or someone who has already played a bit with these tools, for you, there will be interesting things to do from the assignments point of view. So each month we'll have contests, and at least some of these contests will be challenging enough, and that's how we are designing it now, that you will learn some additional things that are typically not done in other courses, right? So whether in Coursera courses or NPTEL courses, you will not find some challenging hands-on tasks. For instance, the entire pipeline of tasks from collecting data, labeling data, augmenting it, and then applying this machine learning techniques around that.
Then
right?
the engineering on top of that in terms of hyperparameter tuning.
Correct. I think as we'll talk about, right, machine learning, we think of it as a black box. You click a button and the machine learns. That's machine learning. That's not what it is. There's a lot of engineering and insights that goes into it. So this course is about all of that. Right? Cool. So that is what we are doing. And other point is, of course, we are keeping it at a very affordable rate. So there are several courses out there that charge orders of magnitude more fees. At least for the student side, we have tried to keep it affordable. On the professional side, we are reducing the fees as and when we can, depending on the number of signups. So one thing that I think will help in this regard also, and also for you to learn better, is to learn in groups, right? So we have got registrations from about 450 or more organizations. In for many places, there's maybe one registration. So for people, if you are one among them, you want to find maybe a colleague or a friend who wants to read it with you, and thereby you can share notes and share insights and so on. Right? So that's also something that you could do and popularize this course. Yeah.
Okay, so we could just quickly go over a list of questions that were asked and posted in the discussion forum, and then we'll start with a small presentation which is about busting the whole jargon bubble around this AI, machine learning, deep learning. Where does all this fit in, and what are you here to learn? Right, you're here to learn deep learning. So where does this fit in this bubble, and why you should care about it? Right. So we'll start with that in a few minutes. Once we just go through all the questions that were asked.
Yeah. So the idea here is there were some questions on the platform itself, on the discussion forum, and then there were some questions as individual emails. So firstly, you're encouraged to use the discussion forum because that way we can answer questions in a more scalable way. So email you'll get slower responses as the course begins. So you're encouraged to use the discussion forum. So you can also ask us questions now. So you can chat and let us know the questions. But the popular ones are noted by us, and we'll try to go through them. The first question is about fees, right? So questions around when do we pay the fees, how do we pay the fees, how much is the fees, and so on. So it is true that we did a bit of tinkering around that. So maybe we'll just clarify all that right now. So for students and faculty members, it is 1,000 rupees plus GST, which is 18% for the entire 4-month course, right? And for professionals, currently it is 10,000 plus GST. And we are hoping that as we hit higher numbers, we can reduce that further, right? So our goal is to get it to 5,000 rupees plus 18% GST, right? So when do you pay for it? The payment gateway is not yet open. I think it will be open starting the second half of this month. So the course, remember, begins on 1st February. What we are doing now is just an informal get together. So once it is up, already on the typical URL that you use for signing up and then going into the course content, you will see a button there to pay for the course, right? Depending on whether you are a student or a professional, the appropriate amount will be shown. You simply click that, and we have a payment gateway integrated and you can pay through debit cards, credit cards. So almost all cards issued in India you can pay. I understand you can even pay with UPI. So I think so, but we'll cross check and confirm that later on. So typically, whatever you use in other interfaces to pay online, all those interfaces will be available, right? So I just get a question here: why the course fees? I'm understanding what that means is, why are you charging fees for the course? So one thing is, there are some costs involved in hosting the content that we are doing, and also a lot of the assignments that we are giving you. As you know, we are trying to solve an unsolved problem of Google Lens like application for Indian languages. That requires us to do a lot of cloud compute ourselves, design interesting assignments, get TA support, and so on. So that involves some infrastructure costs that we are trying to make up for. I'll just go through the questions in series, and then we'll come back to the ones that are coming here, right? So there's something on background you want to just answer that.
So background, I think we have already clarified that we're going to assume very little prerequisites, and whatever background is required in terms of little bit of calculus, little bit of probability, we'll include that in the course. Someone also asked whether you should know Android programming. Not really. See, Android programming is not the goal of this course. The goal is that you build an app which can then be deployed on Android phones, right? So the Android container, we'll give you a container where the functionality of taking a pic and then uploading it and so on, all that is already there. All you need to do is deploy your model at the back end, right? So this app will call your model and it will do the required functionality. So neither we expect to teach, nor do we expect you to know Android. A little bit of maybe 2 to 3 days work on just getting the basics is required, and we'll point you to relevant material whenever that is required. But that's not the purpose of this course, right? Android is something you can learn from various sources, and we don't really plan to use that.
Yeah, but one interesting reason why we are doing the Android thing is for you to see that you can actually build something within 3 months and put it in an app store or a Play Store and let people start using it. Of course, the little bit of container around the app we'll build, but that is something that you can also quickly pick up in a month. But that's not part of the course, right?
The second question is about compute, right? Where will you run your assignments? Because this is a hands-on course, you need some compute power to do it. So the way we are planning to design it is that for the first 2 months, right, you will not require much compute time. If you are a student in a university or something, with your laptop, if it's a reasonably stable laptop, you should be able to do it. Or all universities, most of them have some kind of a computer lab, so you should be able to do that, right? So that's not going to be very expensive. And the third option that you have is you could register on one of these cloud platforms, which is Google Cloud Platform or AWS. You can do a lot of things in the free tier where you don't really pay anything, right? You just use as much as you can in that free tier, and that should carry you through to the first 2 months at least, right? And then later on, Google or AWS, right, it also gives you some free credits to run, right? So when you sign into Google Cloud Platform, it have around $300 of free credits. That should be sufficient for you to do the remaining experiments in the last 2 months of the course, right? We'll design it that way. And also we will have some minimal scholarships for students who are doing well, so that we'll give them extra cloud credits if you want to run some more experiments and so on, right? But to the best of our knowledge, the way we are designing it right now, with these free platforms which are available to students and professionals, we should be able to get through it, right? That's how it should be.
So one caveat there, or clarification there, is typically in deep learning, right, the more compute you throw, sometimes if you know what to do with it, you can actually get better and better performance, right? So some of the assignments, or let's not the assignments, but the contests. So there are these two words. There's assignments which you do, let's say at a weekly level, which is just testing you on the material learned in that week, but contest happens monthly, and they're more, let's say, bigger challenges, more grand challenges, right? Some of the contests will have some components that require some extra compute, right? Now, if you have access to it, you can throw more compute, but it will be up to you to figure out, how to pay for it. So I think the point that Mitesh made is to go through the course, to learn the course and understand it well. You don't need additional things. We'll give you material to understand how to use the free tiers of AWS and Google Cloud Platform. So we'll let you know how to do that whenever that comes up. Don't worry about that now. But if you want to do a bit better in the assignments, if you have access to a GPU yourself or can use the cloud and pay for it, you may get better results. But that's up to you to figure out how to pay for that, right?
Yeah. So then someone mentioned about Kaggle for competition. Yes, we'll be using Kaggle for the competitions. So all these monthly contests will be held on Kaggle, so where you can see your rank, how you are performing with respect to other students, and so on. And that will also figure in your certificates and so on, right? That what was your monthly score, and it will all be aggregated to give you a final score in the exam. Yes,
Correct. Yeah, so the Kaggle, a few details, right? This is Kaggle in class, so it will be a private competition that is specific to people within the course, and this is meant to do two things, right? One is Kaggle has this nice interface where we can define a problem, and then you upload your solution, and that gets verified there, and you get a score right away, right? So the compute is happening on the cloud. We're not computing it when we are evaluating it, right?
Yeah.
That is one, and this is done in partnership with Google. And the second point is that you have a nice sense of leaderboards there. You can see how you're performing with respect to others. So you submitted a version and you find that, okay, you're not probably at the very top and you want to push yourself a bit more, try another tweak on your deep learning model. You could do that and submit another one and improve yourself, right? So that feedback is what we would like to get going here.
Right. So someone asked that if you have done other courses on deep learning, do you still need to do this course, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we had said in our introduction video also. So if you think you are capable of solving complex problems like the project that we are going to solve in this project, in this course, which is you take a picture of an image, it has some signboard, and you can automatically translate it to the language of your choice, right? If you think you can do this, then you know enough and you don't need to do this course, right? So, but if you think that you're still not at that level where you can take this problem and right from inception to execution, you can do all of that and also understand why things are working the way they are, in terms of the theory behind it and so on, right? Then it's fine. You don't really need to do this course. But if you're not at that level, then we would encourage you to do this course. So this is our decision which you can take. We're just giving you information about what is there in this course.
Correct. The other, I think, just as a nuanced version of this, there's somebody who's asked, I have finished Deep Learning 1 on NPTEL and I have good knowledge about TensorFlow. Do I need to do this course? Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you mean by good knowledge. So if you are, my judgment of that would be that if you are able to solve these problems, then you are there. You don't really need one more course on this.
Okay. So just I'll add my take on that, right? See, typically what happens when you're approaching deep learning, there's a lot of content out there. You've already seen some videos, you've played with some TensorFlow, you've done maybe done one course and so on, right? The test is, are you able to from scratch take a new problem where you have to think about data, think about labeling it, curating it, maybe augmenting it, and so on, and go through the whole engineering process of choosing the model, choosing the loss function, doing hyperparameter tuning, and finally getting the result. So all this might not be very familiar to many of you here who have not done deep learning, but for those who are familiar, so this whole cycle at a practical level is what we are trying to do, and the course is designed to give you lots of interactive assignments and insights which help you along this process, right? So it's more of an end-to-end process rather than a theoretical. Yeah.
And so now someone has asked about the price again. So that's a misconception. The price has not increased from 300 to 1,000. It's at 300 per month, which amounts to 1,200 rupees for the 4-month course. So now if you take 1,000 plus GST, which would be around 180 rupees, so it's 1,180, right? So it's still around the same number that we had said earlier. It's just that instead of per month, now we are quoting the number which is for the entire 4-month period, right? That's all. That's you could do the math. It's not really increased.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's important to be clear about that. We're keeping the price the same for students, and for professionals, we were able to reduce it by half.
Yeah. And we intend to reduce it even more based on enough enrollment so that we can cover our hosting and development costs.
Okay. Anything else from there, or I have a few things here. So one is, there were some questions about content. What will you cover in this content? For instance, will it have something about scalability of machine learning? This was a detailed question. We will probably not go much into how to make ML very scalable on large systems. The course is intended to finally end up with an application that runs on a mobile, right? So we'll take a realistic real-world application, take a photo and analyze it and do it. We're not interested really in training at scale or federated training and so on, right? So that is one thing. Future courses also, there was a question. Somebody said, I'm interested in your future courses, in particular the machine learning course. On our homepage, you might have seen that we have a plan to launch several courses. So every semester, you'll have one course coming out. The exact sequence has not been finalized yet, but yes, we do intend to have a course on machine learning, so covering a bit of the traditional statistical approaches to machine learning. So the dates are not confirmed, so we will keep you informed as soon as we have that. So one of the things we are also trying to do is get feedback from people like you on what you would like to do next. For instance, if you want to do a more advanced course on deep learning, let's say applying deep learning to natural language processing, we'll offer that course next semester, right? So it's a evolving thing that because we are limited to doing only one course a semester based on bandwidth, so we'll choose that accordingly. Anything from there?
Yeah. So there's one question which someone has asked: will this course be useful for deep learning research for PhD students, or it's purely application oriented? will definitely be useful for research because you need to build your fundamentals when you're doing research, right? And a lot of research in deep learning is very empirical. What I mean by that is you have to really know how to work with data, how to set up your experiments, how to design experiments, fine tune your networks, and so on. So these are things that we'll be covering in the context of one problem. But these ideas about how we go from inception to execution, they are transferable across multiple research problems also. So in our opinion, yes, definitely it would benefit you in your research. It's very important to have these fundamentals, not just mathematical part of it, but I would also call this entire engineering story behind deep learning as a fundamental thing because it's an empirical science at the end of the day, right? So it's very important to get a feel for that, and that's what we'll get in this course.
Also, to add to that, right, in the garage, one of the streams in which the students coming in would be working would be research, right? So we do expect that we can get some top students in the garage who come with the mindset to do research and publish in the top venues. We do that as our job, right? We publish papers in deep learning. We hope to be able to mentor some students towards that direction also. So research is one angle. Our second angle is building products with commercial value, and the third one is building products with, let's say, social value, like the one we are doing with the course itself.
So there's some question on certification. Yeah, we could share the sample with you, but it just be like any other certification that you get from, say, Coursera or any other place, right? It'll have your name, it will have the course which you have done, it will also have marks and maybe some notion of a grade, right? Where did you end up in the relative positioning with respect to others in your class? So we could share that, but it's, I mean, nothing new, right? You would have seen several such certificates. It's more or less the same.
But you will be able to add it to your LinkedIn profile, so
Yeah.
that you will be able to do. So that's a good reminder that you should follow us on LinkedIn and just at least be aware of what are the updates.
Yeah.
I think that in today's time, if you can add some certificate to your LinkedIn, that is probably the most valuable place to add it, right? So we'll enable that.
Yeah. Right.
More questions?
Yeah, so there is no NSEM as such, no final exam per se. The final exam, the way we see it, is the capstone project. So your performance on the project, how good have you built the solution, what's your accuracy or other metrics that we'll have, that's your evaluation. And so whatever scores you get on the Kaggle competition for the final capstone project, and also this continuous monthly evaluation where you have assignments and contests. So we'll not have any exams per se, right? No final examination as such. During the monthly period, you'll also have some quizzes where you'll have to answer some multiple choice questions or even some theory questions. But that's about it. There's no last exam as such.
Yeah, but you will. I think the way to think of it is that there are contests every month. And so your relative performance in that contest is some indication of how you have been doing, right? At least at one level, we'll be giving some scholarships. We'll be probably awarding some cloud credits to the top performers. That is one way for us to give you feedback. But this course is really intended for you to take feedback the way it's available, which is learn better and do better in the contest, right? So it's not in that sense a traditional university course where there's a final exam and then you get a pass grade.
Yeah, right.
This is more of a self-study. You've signed up for it, and we've signed up to teach it. So that's the way it is formatted, right?
Now, this question about how is this different from Google Translate app? So it's not Google Translate, Google Lens basically, which allows you to take pictures and then translate them to different languages and even search based on that text and so on, right? So the idea is to make you comfortable in building something which a company like Google can build. Right? That's one idea. The second idea is that if you look at Google Lens, it does not really work for all Indian languages, right? So we want to teach you how to do it for 1 or 2 or 3 Indian languages, and then give you the skill set so that you can go and build it for as many Indian languages as you care about, right? So just because Google has some version of it, it does not mean that the problem is solved, first of all. And secondly, it's not solved in the Indian context largely, right? There are some languages for which they don't have a solution. So that's what I would say.
Yes.
Yeah. The difference between this course and the course offered by NPTEL, as I said earlier, that's a very theory-oriented course where I do a lot of mathematical stuff. And we were not able to do a lot of hands-on there because we need a different kind of infrastructure for that. We need more people to help us in designing, building, solving these solutions before we can teach it to the larger audience, right? So that's why those things were not possible for me to do in the NPTEL setup. That's why this is a bit different from that, right? So there'll be at least 50 to 60% of the course where you'll have emphasis on hands-on. A lot of theory that we'll cover will also be different because that was a course which was taught in my class in IIT Madras and with a certain assumptions about backgrounds and so on, and also certain prerequisites which the students had done in the previous course. And here we try to minimize that a bit more, right? So that's about it. You could just check and see whether you like it or not.
Yeah, the other angle is that there is this notion of a garage, right? So we are interested in sort of inviting the top students to work with us at least over the summer, and the hope is that we can then find a good match to work longer. Work on what? Work on actually taking deep learning and solving real world problems, right? So that other angle is there, which is that we want to create a network around this course and then use that to meaningfully solve problems at scale, right? So that community building, and that's why you have this hangout session today as well, to build that sense of community around the course.
Sure. So I think that's about it. Yeah, for getting started on Kaggle and all, we'll have specific assignments where you'll have to do a few exercises so that you create a Kaggle account, do some small thing there so that you get comfortable with it, right? So you don't need to go through Kaggle sample projects per se, but we'll give you the requisite handholding as required, right? We'll ask you to do a specific steps of things so that you get familiar with Kaggle.
Yeah, so I think there was one question, I don't see it now. There was a question about why is it more expensive for professionals than students, right? I think I just want to address the fees part because that is important for us. So the fees for students is significantly subsidized, right? So it's much cheaper than what you get in other places. I think you are aware of what other offers there are in terms of places to learn deep learning. For professionals, we felt that for the ones who could pay, we have identified what is the amount that you should pay for us to be able to break even on what costs we are incurring to run this at our end, right? However, if for some reason you are not able to pay, right, and we understand there are financial constraints, we have written on the website also that there are scholarships available, and you can write to us, and we'll consider all merit cum means situations and try to offer a scholarship. In particular, for women coming back from a break, right, we have announced that the course will be completely free. So if you're someone who has taken a break from your job, you're doing programming earlier, and now you're thinking of upskilling yourself to deep learning and so on, you can join the course, and it's going to be completely free for you. So I think we can continue taking the questions.
Yeah.
But I think,
so for the compute, a lot of you are still asking questions, and rest assured that it should be fine. There are enough free tiers available on various cloud platforms like Google, AWS, and you should be able to manage with that. It will not be that in the middle of the course suddenly you feel that, oh, I can't run any experiments. That will not happen. There are enough free solutions out there because the moment you register, you get $300 free credits on Google and similar some amount on AWS also, right? So you should be able to manage with those. That's the idea.
Yeah, there's one question on international student also. We got an email about that. Yeah, so wherever you are in the world, you could join as long as you're able to pay the fees. This is going to be the same amount, so it's going to be charged in Indian rupees. So if you could pay in Indian rupees through the payment gateway that we have, then you can sign up, right? So that's about it. In very extraordinary conditions, if there's some issue, you can also write to us, and then we can deal with it, right? But again, the amount of email support we'll have will be limited because we are doing it in a bootstrapped way.
So this question about neither a student nor a professional, if you could elaborate what is the other category, we could answer that. You could write to us at scholarship@onefourthlabs.in. We could answer that.
Yeah, the question on frameworks, right? I think TensorFlow. So there are several frameworks out there for deep learning, and it's a matter of style and design and approach to deep learning as to which framework you use. So for instance, there is TensorFlow, PyTorch, and so on. The course will be based on PyTorch. Okay, we had mentioned TensorFlow on one of our earlier slides, but after a lot of discussion internally, we have chosen to teach PyTorch because the way the language is structured, it is easier to learn and communicate, and hence to start off deep learning with. And two, there are many interesting features of the language which actually enable you to look at custom networks, look at custom designs of models, and so on, and eventually scale that all the way up to research. So many researchers today are actually adopting PyTorch, right? So we will make that, let's say, opinionated decision to choose PyTorch, but we'll give you some interesting information about TensorFlow, and you should be able to replicate whatever you learn on TensorFlow as well, right? Okay.
And so one last question, which was about till when will the course be live, right? So as we said, the course runs from February 1st to May 31st, and we'll keep the content available till July 31st. After that, the content expires, right? The reason is that this is not like a at your own pace kind of a course. We want you to really learn in a synchronized manner where you compete with your peers and get to learn in that process and so on, right? That's how we have planned it, and you could have the content for another 2 months if you want to watch it or things like that. And we will so that's that's the answer to the question about.
Yeah, so we are, I think, half an hour into the call, so we could start with a small lecture to give you a flavor for what we'll do. And then probably we'll come back in case there are a couple of more questions, but we'll start with the lecture, right? So the way that is going to work, since we're not able to share our screen, is we are going to share a link with you on the chat, which I'm pasting right now. And this link actually contains a slide deck. It's a live slide deck. As we change stuff here, you should see the slide deck moving. In case it doesn't for some reason, we'll just mention that we are making a transition. So apologies, this time we are using YouTube Live. I think we should be using Hangouts, which we'll do so next time, right? Yeah, so I think we'll start the slide. So please go to the link. I hope most of you are then seeing the first slide, which says jargon busting, and I'll let Mitesh take over.
They'll also change for them also, right?
Yeah. So as we change, I suppose it changes for you. Can someone confirm? Are you able to see it toggling between the first two slides as I change here? I just continue to toggle between the first two slides, and maybe someone can write on the chat if it's toggling. It is okay. So we'll get started.
Okay, sure. So this is the context for this talk is, right. So all of you who have registered for the course or are listening to this talk are interested in deep learning, right? Now, where does this deep learning fit in the scheme of things? Like, because a lot of jargon is going on around, right? So if you read articles, blogs, or anything, you'll come across the words like AI, machine learning, data science, and so on. So why particular deep learning, right? Why do you want to learn deep learning, and where does it fit in this entire jargon cloud, right? So let's start with all the different terms that you typically hear in this context, right? So you would have heard of the following terms: data science, artificial intelligence, pattern recognition, machine learning, computer vision, speech, reinforcement learning, and then deep learning also, right? So what does each of this mean? Is data science different from artificial intelligence? Is it a subset? Is it a superset? What about machine learning? Is it the same as data science, or is it something different? Where does NLP fit into this? Why is image processing different from computer vision, and so on? And I'm not just creating this confusion, right? It's actually there if you look around you. So as you know, I'm a faculty member at IIT Madras, right? And here at IIT, we have a Center for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence, which is called the Robert Bosch Center. So now the question is, why have a Center for Data Science and AI, right? So have you heard of a Center for Excellence in Cricket and Chemistry? It's not, right? So it's not that you could have a center for two things which are very different. And if they're very similar, then why have a center for both of them? Just say center for AI or center for data science. If it's synonymous, then it would cover both these things, right? So there has to be some similarity between them to have a center which does both. At the same time, they should be different enough so that you need two different terms to describe them. So what's this difference and what's the similarity? Similarly, if you look at it, the most popular or one of the most popular textbooks on machine learning is titled Introduction to Pattern Recognition and Machine Learning. So now this again calls for the same question, right? How are they similar? How are they different? Why do we need to talk about both in the same context? And why have a textbook which does both of these together and so on, right? Then you would have heard of courses like deep learning for natural language processing. So what does that again mean? Is deep learning only used in the context of NLP? Is it used in the context of other problems also? How does natural language processing how is that different from artificial intelligence or machine learning? Or how is deep learning different from machine learning, right? And then within the institute, we have another lab called Image Processing and Computer Vision Lab, right? So now here's a question again. Why do you have image processing and computer vision? So I'll give you a trivia question and let's see if some of you can answer that. How many of you have heard of this ImageNet challenge? Maybe you could just type here if you can. I'm asking how many of you have heard of the ImageNet challenge. I'm posting the link to the slide again.
No. So this is the link to the slides. You just open that and then you'll be able to see the slides there.
Yeah. Okay. So this ImageNet challenge, right? Some of you are saying that you have heard of it. So I'll just tell you what it is for the others who don't know about it. This is this large image classification data set which has been released around 10 years back, which has around images from belonging to 1,000 different classes, right? So it has images of, maybe you could just keep together, right?
It's not working out.
Okay. So of 1,000 different categories. So they have cats, cars, dogs, you have trucks and so on. And your job is, given an image, you should be able to find out which of these categories does this belong to, right? So this is an image classification task. Now, again, let me ask this another trivia question. Where do most papers on this ImageNet actually get published, right? So there is this one conference called ECCV, there's another conference called ICLR, and the third most popular conference where papers on image classification get published is something known as CVPR. Does anyone know the full form of CVPR?
You took the blue arrow there. Yeah. Yeah, the interaction latency is very high.
Yeah. So actually, it stands for computer vision and pattern recognition, right? So there's again some food for thought. Why are papers on image classification being published at a conference which is titled computer vision and pattern recognition, right? So again, you see a lot of these words being spoken of together, and it's not clear what is the relation between these things, right? Then you have something known as speech technology, and then of course reinforcement learning is another very popular subject which is gaining a lot of interest in the recent years. Now here's one more thing to think about, right? In the Robert Bosch Center for Data Science and AI, there are students and faculty who work on deep reinforcement learning. So now you have data science AI, a Center for Data Science and AI. People there are working on deep reinforcement learning, which involves both deep learning and reinforcement learning. Right? So now what's the connection between all this? Why is this all legit? So this is the entire jargon bubble that is out there. And of course, then there is other jargon, like in terms of tasks, like classification, regression, and so on, which also we'll address at some point. So what does all this jargon mean? And where does deep learning fit in this scheme of things, of all these different concepts that you hear about, right? So now when we are confused about certain terms, the simplest thing that we do is look for definition, right? So we go to the most reliable source that you know, maybe Wikipedia or textbooks or whichever is the most reliable source that you think of where you can find these definitions and pick them up from there. And I did that actually. I picked up definitions. Most of these definitions are from Wikipedia. And let's try to look at them, right? So here's the definition for artificial intelligence, which says that AI, sometimes called machine intelligence, is intelligence demonstrated by machines in contrast to the natural intelligence displayed by humans and other animals. This looks like a perfectly neat definition. It's a correct definition, and I understand what's the intended meaning of this, right? And that's true for all the definitions that I'm going to show. None of the definitions that I'm going to show you are incorrect, but still they don't really clarify the answers that I'm looking for, right? So now let's look at, you have seen the definition for AI. Now let's focus on the definition for machine learning. So machine learning is a field of computer science that uses statistical techniques to give computer systems the ability to learn with data and without being explicitly programmed. Now, once I read these two definitions together, some natural questions definitely crop up in my head. So is it that AI does not have statistical techniques? Is that why it's the reason why it's emphasized in machine learning but not in AI? But now that doesn't seem to be the case, right? Because I'm sure you have read several articles where people talk about AI, and if you need to learn AI, you should have a background in statistics and probability and so on. And even if you take the most popular textbook on AI, it will have some chapter on probability, some chapter on statistical techniques and so on. So even if you don't know anything about this field, most likely you know that AI involves some kind of statistical techniques. But that clearly can't be the difference. And why is it in the definition of machine learning and not in the definition of AI? So that's a question to think about, right? Now, the other important thing here is learn with data. Now, intelligence by definition implies learning, right? You get intelligent as you learn new things. So learning and intelligence are also, I wouldn't say synonymous, but they go quite hand in hand in various contexts, right? So then just saying that machine learning involves learning, but AI does not require learning, intelligence does not require learning, that does not seem to be the right thing. Now, the data, that learning from data. Now, again, just as you hear AI and statistical techniques in the same context, data is again something which has become almost synonymous with AI in the sense that if you have lots of data, you can do AI, you can build an AI system and so on. Right? So you hear data in the context of AI also. So that's also not something which is sacrosanct to machine learning. Right? And the last difference which is being talked about here is that, is it AI only if it is explicitly programmed? So now, before answering this question, we first need to understand what does explicitly programmed actually mean, right? So this is some of the questions that we'll answer over the course of this lecture. Today we'll leave you at some point and then we'll continue at some other point in the next week, right? So what does it mean that if you say that something is explicitly programmed? So these are all questions to ponder about. And at least my feeling at this point is that if I look at these two genuine definitions, I'm still not able to make a sense of what is the difference between them, or are they the same, or what's the similarity? Is there an intersection, overlap, subset, superset? What is the relation between these two, right? And let's just continue on our journey and we look at some more definitions. So here's a definition of data science. So data science is an interdisciplinary field that uses scientific methods, processes, algorithms, and systems to extract knowledge and insights from data in various forms, both structured and unstructured. So now you know the grind. I'm again going to ask you some questions. Is it that AI ML are not interdisciplinary? Now, this is again something which is very trivial for you to answer, right? So AI, for example, is being used to do some DNA analysis and so on. So it's something which is in the medical domain. It's being used to do medical image analysis. It's being used in chemistry domain. It's being used in physics domain and so on. Right? So it's clearly interdisciplinary. Machine learning also is being used in a wide variety of disciplines. So it's not that it's data science if it's interdisciplinary, and it's not in data, it's not machine learning or AI if it's interdisciplinary. All of these seem to be interdisciplinary. Again, just look about at the articles that you have read or the articles that you have read in the context of AI and ML. I'm sure you would have come across some applications which are clearly interdisciplinary, right? So it does not seem to be the defining criteria for saying that something is data science. The next thing itself again, right, that it uses scientific methods, processes, and algorithms. Is it the case that AI and ML are not scientific? They don't use well-grounded methods and processes, or they don't use algorithms? That's also not the case, right? AI and machine learning has a lot of theory behind that. You have a lot of theory grounded in calculus, grounded in probability, then optimization and so on, right? So it's again scientific. There are clear proofs for various things that you do in AI and machine learning, right? So it's not that it's data science only if it's a scientific method, right? Or rather, it's if it's a scientific method, then only it's data science, and machine learning and AI does not use scientific method. That's also not the case. And same thing about knowledge, right? Knowledge is again synonymous with intelligence. If you have knowledge, the ability to extract knowledge, show your knowledge, and so on, that again amounts to intelligence. That's not the case that its knowledge is not crucial in AI or machine learning. And so again, this looking at these three definitions, it's still not very clear to me where does each of these things fit in the scheme of things and how they are different or similar. And we'll continue. We'll just look at three more definitions before we move on to something else, right? So now the definition of pattern recognition. Now again, at the beginning, I told you that the most popular textbook is Introduction to Pattern Recognition and Machine Learning. So now why both of this? So now let's look at the definition of pattern recognition, which is the automated recognition of patterns and regularities in data. Right? So now I'll ask you questions in a different manner, or I'll try to rather say things in a different manner. So recognition of patterns, doesn't that imply intelligence? So think about this. When students as kids, when we went to LKG or junior KG, the first thing that we do is try to learn to identify patterns, right? We are taught the alphabets, so we learn how to distinguish the pattern of A from the pattern of B, or the pattern of 1 from the pattern of 2, and so on. Right? So recognizing patterns definitely demonstrates some intelligence. So then how is it different from artificial intelligence, where you're talking about intelligence demonstrated by machines? So if you can recognize patterns, and it implies it has some intelligence, right? Now also, if you can recognize patterns, then you can extract insights from data. That's also true. So if I can recognize the pattern C, I can recognize the pattern A and the pattern T, then I know that it's a cat, right? That's some insight that I'm extracting from the data. So recognition of patterns also implies that you can extract insights from data. And then there's some overlap with data science there, because data science definition says that you should be able to extract insights from data. Now, recognizing patterns also means that you're learning from data, right? Because if you're seeing a lot of images of zeros, ones, twos, or A, B, Cs, then that's the data which you're being shown. And now you're learning from that data that these patterns are A, these patterns are B, these patterns are C, and so on. So now learning is also happening when you're doing pattern recognition. So then how is it different from any of these, right? So these are some interesting questions that you should ask yourself at this point and take some time to think about them, right? And just look at two more definitions. Computer vision is an interdisciplinary field that deals with how computers can be made to gain high-level understanding from digital images or videos and automate tasks that the human visual system can do. Now, this again, I'll just throw up some terms. Interdisciplinary is clearly not the distinguishing term. We already discussed that. High-level understanding, again, understanding implies some kind of intelligence. It implies some kind of learning. It implies some kind of pattern recognition. Now, one interesting difference here is that all the other four definitions, whenever they talked about data, they were talking about data in the generic sense. Now, this is the first time that we're talking about data for a very particular type. It's only images and videos. We're not talking about any other type of data. So now that gives us some handle about how to look at these things and how to differentiate between them. And we'll get to that. And again, it's saying that this is to automate tasks. Again, AI means automation of tasks, right? If you have a machine which has artificial intelligence, it can automate some tasks that humans can do. But in this particular case, we are interested in automating tasks that the human visual system can do, right? So that's probably getting a bit more specific, right? And now on this slide, I'll end with the definition of deep learning. And this is again taken from a very good source. And I find it a bit funny. So I'll just say the definition and I'll leave you to think about it, right? Is a new area of machine learning research which has been introduced with the objective of moving machine learning closer to one of its original goals, which is artificial intelligence. Now, again, this has deep learning, it has machine learning, it has artificial intelligence. It's also saying that deep learning is a new field which is specifically introduced to do something and so on, right? And a lot of this definition is a bit evangelistic. It's trying to promote deep learning in some sense, and it's fine but it's still not very clear how does it fit in the scheme of things, right? And that's the answer that we are looking for. You have hearing a lot of this jargon. Where do you fit all this? And now, at least my conclusion based on looking at all these definitions is that I'm still confused. I'm still not able to say that if you give me something, whether this is AI, this is machine learning, CV, data science, pattern recognition, deep learning, and so on. And if you think you are not still confused, then I'd be happy about it. But you have to then answer this question for me. All of you are aware of this poster child for deep learning and machine learning. Right? Almost every course on machine learning and deep learning starts with this problem that I've given you images of handwritten digits. And now your job is to recognize these digits. And that's the task which has been given to you, right? And this is known as automatic recognition of handwritten digits. So this task, if an agent can do this, right? Is this AI? Is this machine learning? Is this data science? Is this pattern recognition? Is this computer vision? Or is this deep learning? So this is your first assignment for the course. You have to go back and think about this question, think about these definitions, and give us an answer on your thoughts about what do you think is this task and why. If you think it's AI, why do you think it's AI? If you think it's machine learning, why do you think it's machine learning, right? And we're not just going to leave you with this question, because as I already said that all we have told you is some definitions, which has led to you thinking about a lot of questions, but still not answered anything, right? So we'll give you some hint about how to approach this so that this haze gets cleared a bit, this fog is cleared a bit, and you start arriving at a lens for looking at these various things through that lens, which is a very pragmatic lens of how to make sense of all the terms floating around, right? So we'll give you a framework, and your job is to basically try to fill things in that framework. And next week, we'll come back and give you the right answer for where these things fall and how you should look at these different things, right? So here's the framework that I'm going to give you, right? So we have tried to resolve this confusion by looking at definitions, but that's clearly not something which worked. So we are now going to try an alternative approach to resolve this confusion. So we know that humans are intelligent beings, and we are looking for where artificial intelligence comes from, or what is artificial intelligence, right? So let's take humans, which are intelligent beings, and let's start from there and then try to make sense of all these terms, right? So this is the framework that I'm going to leave you with, right? So if you look at this automatic pattern recognition, think of it as a task. Now, if humans can do this task, it means that they have the ability to see and perceive information, right? That's the ability that this is demonstrating. And now to do this, think of different algorithms that you could use, right? And one of the algorithms that we're going to cover in the course, or the method that we're going to cover in the course, is a deep neural network or deep learning based method. So now with this framework, where you look at things as abilities, tasks, and methods, go back and look at all the terms that you saw earlier, right? And go back and look at all the other things that you hear about: classification, regression, object detection, translation, and so on, and see where all of that fits in this framework. Right? So that's the first assignment for you. And we'll just tell you how to go about this, where do you go and submit this, and how do you access the interface for doing that. So maybe Patricia.
Yeah. So I just want to just add a few comments also here, right? So what I think the stage was set for you to understand that we know many words like data science, machine learning, and so on. But even the best definitions out there from textbooks and Wikipedia and so on don't make it very clear what these are or how they are different. So as you approach a course on deep learning, you should be able to answer the question what this means. And to do that, we are trying to have a joint understanding of how we look at it, so that you get that picture, and then we are able to run the course with that picture in mind, right? So as Mitesh was saying, just throwing these definitions didn't help. So the framework is essentially one way of taking all these words and positioning them on these three layers, right? So there are abilities, there are tasks, and there are methods. And take all these words that you've been hearing, natural language processing, for instance, and place them in one of these places. So we are calling this the AI map. Okay, so your task is, given this particular instance of character recognition, you have already seen that it's a vision ability and it leads to a deep learning based method. What are the other abilities that you can think of? What are the other tasks that you've heard about in terms of, let's say, people solve this particular task and so on? And what are the different methods that you know of, starting from classical methods that you learned before, let's say, during your engineering or even earlier, that were successful before the deep learning era, and what are the ones that you know of today which are successful? So that is what you'll have to populate. So this is the task of filling this AI map. And so what I'll do, I cannot share my screen and show that, but what you will be able to do is, if you go to the course webpage,
Go to your dashboard.
right. So if you go to the course webpage, you should see a place to sign in. So there's at the right top. So if you go to PadhAI.14labs.in, there is sign in, and you can then sign in at that point. I think many of you have done that. Nitish, do you want to quickly sign in? I'll just go through the steps. Yeah, I think next time we'll just use Hangouts. It becomes easier to show it, right? So once you sign in, you can go into the courses that you have accessed.
My dashboard,
which is in my dashboard, and you go into the enroll on PadhAI course, which is for you to get onto the platform there. That's why that says 93/4 there. And now we have added a new lesson. I think many of you have gone through it, some of you not, but there are several lessons. Some of them are about the course itself. Some of them are a little survey that helps you introduce yourself and so on. And then there is a jargon busting last lesson that has been created, and within that there is a component which actually is an embedded Google form. You can open that and you will be able to find here a place to write your email address, and you'll get this AI map. You're required to download this AI map image and then put more things out there in the three different boxes, and then upload that either as a PDF or an image file and submit it, right? So that's your first task, so that you know what so you understand a bit about how we think about this jargon, and we can come to a joint understanding of that, right? Also to just tell some people who have not been using it, there is in several of these lessons, there is, to the right top, there is a discussion box which says n number of discussions. For instance, you can click there and you can either create a new post, or you can answer existing questions that have been posed there. So you can use that for discussion. And I think from a support point of view, or clearing doubts point of view, this will be the preferred method, right? So we'll not be able to answer individual emails, right? All right. So we had a quick look into the topic. You had something to add?
So we could just maybe post the LinkedIn link on the chat, so that they can just join us there. That would be easier for us to communicate.
Let's do that. Okay. You want to, maybe there are a few more questions that you want to answer in the meantime.
If you have any other questions or thoughts, you could just keep posting them. We'll take them. But we really want you to go back and think about whatever we said today, and hope it raised some questions in your mind about what these different things are, and hope you're able to make sense of them. We'll definitely clarify this in the next lecture, but as is going to be the philosophy of this course, we are going to make you do a lot of work. We're going to give you a lot of hands-on and thinking time. So just go back and do that, so that we are back again next week and can have a more meaningful discussion around
it. So we'll have one more session at least before the course begins. On that session, you will see the filled up sheet from our side, and also a few extras, right? So there are some things that don't even fit in that AI map, and they are outside the AI map. So you'll even see that. And maybe we will also get to hear a bit more about Kaggle competitions and the cloud and so on, based on what are the more popular questions that people continue to ask, right? So I think it's about 11:54. Unless you want to take some more important questions, we can go to the top of the hour. The LinkedIn link I can add to this. So there are some questions around the deadline for the final capstone. So there are some people have university exams in May, some people have it in April, some people have at other times, right? So it's very hard to schedule things according to that. So February is when the course begins, and it will run till end of May. We will accept submissions maybe a week later, so we'll give you sufficient time for you to do things, and then submit it. But remember, again, this course is not where we are trying to evaluate you, right? So you have to think of it really as something where you are submitting the capstone challenge because you think that's a meaningful addition, and once you do that, you will get a certificate, right? So to that extent, it's a participation certificate. What will be really cool is for you to push yourself and get to the top of leaderboards on these competitions, right?
So how much time do we need to put in on a weekly basis? So this, I think we had said at some point in some video earlier, it's around 6 to 8 hours is what we planned every week is the commitment that is required from your side. And this includes the time required to watch the videos, ingest them, and then work on the hands-on assignments and the monthly competition and so on.
Okay, so there's a request for repeating this task that I just mentioned. And also the previous person had said that you're not able to find this in my dashboard. Go to the course page or go to the home page, sign in, and then you get my dashboard where you'll have different courses listed. The only course that you're registered for now is enroll on PadhAI. Go into that. You'll then get a course page. On this course page on the left side, you see different lessons. Some of you have finished some of these lessons. As you finish them sequentially, the last lesson that you will see, you have to finish the previous ones. The last lesson that you will see is one on jargon busting, where you will be provided link to submit your solution, right? So go through all of them in sequence. Probably that's why you don't see it now.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Right. Okay. So we will be discovering some of these things as we go. So there are questions on enabling email notifications for new lessons, for instance. We'll try to keep you as notified as possible. We are trying to sort of like figure out ways to send emails and at a regular interval and so on. But if there are issues you're facing in terms of the content, in terms of getting notifications, etc., please write to us. Okay, and we'll try to address that. So this is very much an experimental thing. So keep us informed. Okay, fine. So that's about it from our side. So it was great talking to you, and we hope to have one more such session next week. Bye.
Yeah, bye.